She is the founder and owner of Being Well Yoga. She's going to be talking about mindful wellness. Stress less, live more. I'm in. Mindfulness is paying attention to the present moment. Wellness is an overall feeling of wholeness and health. And she knows of what she speaks. She is a full-time yoga instructor and wellness consultant. She has had a passion for all things wellness for as long as she can remember. While working for over 20 years in the corporate world as a strategic marketing specialist, she began teaching fitness classes in her free time. This led her to explore yoga. She fell in love with the way it made her and her students feel physically, emotionally, energetically. After teaching part-time for many years, she took the leap and started Being Well Yoga, where she brings yoga on site to companies to help employees learn how to live healthier, more balanced lives. She also teaches in studios, schools, senior centers, parks, private homes. Her approach is balanced. She likes to bring humor, challenge, and deep relaxation into her practices. She just completed her first book, A Year of Mindful Wellness, in which she shares accessible practices and habits to weave mindfulness into your daily life. Lisa Fader.
Thank you very much. I'm really happy to be here. And I would say I'm an extroverted introvert based on the discussion. So I'm excited to be here, but I could also go home and watch Netflix. It'd be fun too. So kind of in between. So I want to get you involved right from the start. This is going to be somewhat interactive. When we're mindful, we're fully present. I want you to start to be able to feel that. So the first thing, and I know Kathy said in her introduction what I think mindfulness is, but if I could just ask you to shout out, what mindful and wellness are kind of buzzwords, but what does mindfulness mean to you? What do you think of when you think of mindfulness?
Consciousness.
Consciousness, okay.
Being in the moment.
Being in the moment. Cognizant.
Awareness.
Aware. Meditation. Yep, okay. Those are exactly what it is, and we'll talk even more about that. And what about wellness? What does wellness mean to you? Healthy. Happiness. What does health mean to you? Because what does it mean? How do you know when you feel healthy?
Being able to do what you want to do.
Energetic.
Being able to do what you want to do. Energetic. Yep.
Not stressed.
Not stressed. We're going to talk a lot about that. All right. That's great. That's exactly right. So for me, mindful wellness is paying attention to every moment rather than just filling it up with activity. We're really good at doing things, right? We do a lot. But in terms of just being and having ourselves be human beings instead of human doings, right? We're not so good at that. And when we fill things up, we don't necessarily stay in the present moment because we're so busy either kind of thinking about what just happened and how we could have done things differently, or why did this person say this, or what's going to happen because of that, or we're projecting out into the future, right? We worry, or we kind of bring up scenarios for ourselves in our minds. Well, this might happen, and then if that happens, this is going to happen. So it takes us out of the present moment. So if you're paying attention to every moment, you're really being in it. And we'll talk about how you do that, rather than just filling it up with activity. And again, I know about this topic because I worked for so many years and tried to do so many different things and just was, loving the activity, but never really felt quite at home with myself. So we want to be mindful so that we can be present with what is. And with what is not always rainbows and unicorns. So if you come to my yoga class, you'll know I sit down and say, when you sit down on the mat, it's not all rainbows and unicorns. There's a lot going on inside of you that you need to deal with. But if you don't deal with it, if you don't take a look at what's happening, all of it, the good and the bad and the ugly, it will eventually show up in a different way, maybe in an illness or in a challenge with relationships, or you lose your temper very easily. So it's going to show up somewhere. So if you can be present with what is, even the discomfort, you can start to move through and process things. And then you can address what's really important, right? You may be involved in lots of different activities and never really think about what's important to you. Maybe you're just doing the things you always did because you always did them. When you sit with yourself or when you allow yourself to be mindful, you will get glimpses of what is really important to you. And maybe even have the opportunity to feel complete and at ease, right? So you can be, part of why I wrote this book and why I do the work that I do is I was very busy doing things and never really felt complete or at ease. I was always kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop. So I'm going to talk right about that. So me and why I talk about this, right? I'm a native Texan. I'm from Houston originally. When I graduated high school, I couldn't wait to get away from Texas, and I did, and I struck out to kind of conquer the world. I was bright, and I had a lot of energy, and I started working. I went and worked for 25 years in marketing. I worked a lot with consumer products. I started at Procter & Gamble working on toothpaste. Then I went to Dallas and went to Mary Kay Cosmetics, where I managed the product lines for Latin America. And then I went to Diageo, which owns Seagram's and a lot of wineries. I own Sterling Vineyard. So I went from toothpaste to makeup to booze, basically. And at that time, I figured there was nothing I could do that was legal that could get any better than that. So I started consulting on my own. The whole time that I'm doing this, I'm an avid wellness and physical fitness champion, and I taught aerobics, and I was a personal trainer on the side, and physical fitness was always a big part of my life. And I taught group exercise. I was the aerobics instructor wearing kind of the microphone and leg warmers. This was a long time ago. And saying, give me 4 more, and smile, and things like that. But that was always something that I did, and it really impacted my life. I've seen the benefits of taking time to be healthy and well as I worked and raised my family. And then I eventually started teaching yoga just because that's what happened at the gym. Some people said, hey, we would like to do yoga. So I came into it from a very physical aspect, but then it kind of took over, the mindfulness of it took over, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. Now I do exclusively teach yoga and corporate wellness education, but I am, as you can probably see, still a type A personality with a really severe case of FOMO, right? You guys know what FOMO is? Fear of missing out, which is a great way to make sure you're not mindful, because whatever you're doing, you're always thinking about what else you could be doing. I was the one who in college never went to bed because I wanted to make sure everyone was asleep before I went to bed so I wouldn't miss anything. And it takes a toll, right? It gets you a little bit tired, and again, that same feeling of not being complete or at ease, because like, what else is there? What's missing? What else can I be doing? So I found that through my yoga practice on the mat, so doing yoga just as a practice really helped me to be more calm in everything else that I did. And then as I started consulting and working a little bit more fluidly, I would come into different companies and see how they worked, and I would think to myself, man, these guys could use a little bit of yoga, a little bit of mindfulness. And I realized that the principles that happen when you are on the mat, the things that happen besides the physical activity, can be really relevant in every day. So my work is about bringing mindfulness off the mat and into your everyday. So who here does practice yoga? Or who here has heard of yoga? with those hands, okay. You guys heard down dog? Anybody? Yeah, okay. Who has ever practiced yoga? Okay, good. Who has a regular yoga practice? Okay, good. Who has someone in your life who tells you you really need yoga? Yeah. So yoga, it's much more than the physical practice, and that's what we're going to talk about. But you don't have to practice yoga on the mat to bring these principles into your everyday. All right, does that make sense so far? So based on what yoga has done for me, the reason I wrote this book and my wish for you is that you can experience, create, and feel more. So not just doing, right? But experience, create, and feel more. What would that be like? And then to feel free to do less, but accomplish more. We equate doing and productivity, right? But a lot of the things that we do don't necessarily lead to our fulfillment or our realizing our intentions. They are kind of masking the fact that we may not be doing what we really choose to do. I think sometimes the busier you are, the less you're actually doing. The less you're actually getting done. So just something to think about. I would like you to be able to breathe more, and we're going to practice some of that, and stress less. So does anybody have a good definition of stress? Does anybody, what? My life, yes. But everyone knows what stress is, right? Everybody kind of feels that. So stress is the response to a perceived demand, right? And it comes from the way that we're hardwired to deal with threats, right? And it's this kind of fight, flight, or freeze response. You guys have all heard of that. And we have a negativity bias. If we see something on the road and we don't know if it's a snake or a stick, our bias is to assume that it's a snake, which keeps us safer, because if you assume it's a snake and it's a stick, no big deal. But if you assume it's a stick and it's a snake, that might be a big deal. So we're actually wired this way. We're wired for stress. But our responses are also wired for something that's much more extreme than we need. So this fight, flight, or freeze would be really appropriate if you're out, you're a cave person, you're hunting, and there's a bear. And you have to either kill the bear or you'll be the bear's dinner. So either way, the situation's going to resolve itself, right? If you kill the bear, you have dinner, and the response settles down. If the bear eats you, then the discussion's over also. But what happens in our lives, in our current experience, is that we have a perceived threat. Maybe it's a job interview, or maybe it is a challenging situation, maybe it's an argument, and you go through that, but then the next one comes up right away, right? We don't get that much rest. So a lot of us find ourselves in a state of chronic stress, which really takes its toll. So we're going to talk about how we can separate from some of the things that we attach to that causes stress. There's actually 3 causes of stress. One is the environment. That might be where you're sitting in traffic on Mopac. One is the physical body. When you are actually ill, that creates stress. And the other is the mind. So about 70% of our stress is produced by us. So I'll do a little example real quick just to kind of bring that home. If you will close your eyes for a moment. Close your eyes and just imagine that you're about to go on vacation. And you've been planning this vacation for a long, long time. It's a place that's been on your bucket list. You just can't wait. And you have to get on it's like a 7 o'clock flight. So in Austin, you have to get up like at 4 to be at the airport at 5. But that's okay, because you're up for it. You're really excited about this vacation. So you set your alarm for 4 o'clock and you go to sleep. And you wake up the next morning and you're like, wow, I'm so rested. I can't believe it's so early. My alarm hasn't even gone off. And you look at your clock and it's actually 6:30 and there's no way you're going to make the flight. Right? All right, so open your eyes. So how did that feel? So that didn't happen. None of that, what I just said, happened. And you probably all had a physical sense in your body of what it feels like you might have had a feeling in your stomach or your heart. So we're great at creating stress. And I'm sorry, I hate that example. I hate to do that to you. But it brings it home. We can just, by like that, create stress for ourselves, right? So we're going to talk about how we kind of separate from some of the things that we carry so that we can not stress so much, right? And I'd like you to be able to feel better and healthier and know that you're enough, So we typically carry everything that we come in contact with, right? All of our experiences leave a little bit of a residue on us. And that leads to us thinking we know, we carry our experiences, so we think we know how things are going to go, or we think a certain way about ourselves, and we get attached to these thoughts and to these beliefs. But these beliefs are not who we are, right? We've just kind of created these stories for ourselves. So when we can really sit with what is and say, okay, this situation is bringing me anxiety, what can I do about it? Versus saying, our language doesn't help us either. I am anxious. You are anxious. No, you're not. You're whoever you are. You're carrying anxiety, right? Other languages, there's some other language, like Spanish is better, right? Because you say you have hunger, right? Not I am hungry, right? So you don't attach to things so much like we do. But the idea of being mindful is to understand that all of these things that happen, right? Anxiety, stress, anger, fear, hunger, tiredness are all just changing perceptions, right? That come and go in your awareness, right? When you're mindful, you get to see what that awareness really is. There's a quote from Pema Chodron, who writes quite a bit about mindfulness. She says, "You are the sky. You are the sky. Everything else is just weather." That makes sense? So weather comes and goes, right? It was raining when I woke up. It's not raining now, right? So you are the sky. Everything else is just weather. So when you get to be mindful, you can kind of experience more of this sense of being that's really your birthright, the sense of joy and wholeness. and still deal with the stuff that comes and goes. So in this book that I've written, I wrote about how to be mindful in different situations, talk about mindful communication and intention setting and mindful movement. And I want to just cover with you today a few of the topics. So today we're going to talk about mindful breath, mindful intentions, mindful mornings and evenings, kind of setting yourself up with some rituals that bring you mindful in the day instead of just waking up in the morning and grabbing your phone and looking at the news that takes you into something completely different. And then we'll do a little bit of mindful movement. So, any questions so far? Does that sound okay? All right. So, mindful breath. And I'm going to read to you, whoops. The breath is your anchor to the present moment, right? Is there ever a time in the present moment when you're not breathing? You're always breathing. So it's happening right now, which is a great reason that the breath can help you be present, and it's always happening. And it's a metaphor for how we live. And I just want to read to you from this really good book, from a quote from one of my teachers, Donna Farhi, about breathing. So, breathing is one of the simplest things in the world. We breathe in, we breathe out. When we breathe with real freedom, we neither grasp for nor hold on to the breath. No effort is required to pull the breath in or push the breath out. Given the simplicity of breathing, one would think it was the easiest thing to do in the world. However, if it were truly so easy, there would be few unhappy or unhealthy people in the world. To become a welcome vessel for the breath is to live life without trying to control, grasp, or push away. And how easy is this? The process of breathing is the most accurate metaphor we have for the way we personally approach life, how we live our lives, and how we react to the inevitable changes that life brings us. Right? And you probably know that about yourself, that when you get very tense, do you find yourself ever holding the breath? Anybody hold your breath sometimes or realize, I'm not breathing, and then you go, right? Or breathing kind of shallowly when you get a little bit stressed, right? We all do that. The breath is a practice of balance also. So we inhale and we exhale. Typically, when we're under stress, we inhale more than we exhale, which leads to a little bit of imbalance. We're taking on more than we let go of. And in fact, there's some new research about illnesses that show that some illnesses are actually connected with breathing in, inhaling more than you exhale. So I want to just start us with the practice of bringing the breath into balance. If you are sitting with your legs crossed, if you wouldn't mind just placing your feet flat on the floor and sitting up tall, and even that, just kind of getting in your body, you may feel, wow, I feel a little better. That actually sometimes happens. You can close your eyes or you can keep your eyes open. It's up to you. Okay. And I'd like you to inhale, and just inhale for a count of 4. I'll actually count for you. And then I'm going to ask you to exhale for a count of 4. Right? So we're going to inhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. Just let the breath return to a natural flow. Good. Does anybody feel worse than they did before we did that? So you feel a little bit more even? Does anyone feel better? Just by doing, yeah. So was it hard for anybody to get the full 4 counts on the exhale? Did I feel like they were running out of breath? Yeah, that can happen too. So that's a practice that I just invite you to do. And that took probably a minute, what we did. I didn't time this, but it probably took a minute. When you are feeling like you are not present or you're not really in the moment or you need a moment for yourself, to just do that kind of even inhale and exhale and see if you can bring yourself back into balance. Now, I was watching you, and everybody looked pretty good. Faces were pretty relaxed. That also sometimes is something I see when I'm looking out, and I see people going, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Do you feel better? Not really? Okay. But we do tend to carry a lot of stress up here. We're going to get to that in a minute when we do some movement. But just the breath itself, allowing yourself to relax into it, can be very helpful as long as you're breathing in a way that is helpful. Some of us breathe, kind of do reverse breathing. When we inhale, we pull the belly in instead of letting ourselves fill up. And when we exhale, we let the belly kind of come out. So we're not really filling the body with the breath. So now I just wanted you to take your hands right around your ribs and your belly. And I just want you to check in to make sure that you are breathing in a way that is supportive of finding this kind of mindfulness in the moment. So when you inhale, your belly should get a little bigger. So let the belly kind of expand. The breath comes in, the belly gets bigger, and when you exhale, the belly relaxes. Good. So some of you might find that when you inhale, your inclination is to pull the belly in. I want you to just try. Inhale and expand. It might feel a little weird. And trying to get the breath to come all the way down in the belly instead of just staying up here too. So do that just for a few breaths. Is anybody finding that that's weird to fill up on the inhale, or are we all kind of in sync there? Okay. Good. All right, so just kind of sigh that out. Good. So to get that full breath, something that's really nice to do, if you find that you are feeling like your mind is racing, maybe you've got something, maybe you're about to go into an interview or you're writing, doing some writing, and you just can't quite focus, right? It's great to come back to the breath to regain that focus. And the breath, if you think about the parts of filling up, it's going to come in through your nose if you're not congested, through your mouth if you have Austin allergies and things, which many of us do. But we want to fill up like a big balloon. So you're going to feel the heart's going to lift, the ribs will expand, and the belly will stretch too. And a lot of us who grew up saying you have to kind of pull in your gut, I did. I know, especially in the gym, I was always like abs of steel, right? Well, abs of steel don't really allow for a lot of movement. So I always tell my class, we really kind of want abs of jello that move a lot so that you can inhale and exhale. So let's just try bringing the breath in for 3 parts, the heart, the rib cage, and the belly. You can place your hands on your body or you can leave them by your side. And just kind of see how you feel your way into this. So you can close your eyes or leave them open. Maybe breathing in through the nose, maybe breathing in through the mouth. On your inhale, breathe in and bring the breath in. Let it lift your heart. Stretch your ribs and your belly. Like a big balloon, a big round breath. Not just the front of the body, the back of the body too. And on your exhale, let the belly relax. Pull it towards the spine. Let the ribs hug you. And let the heart kind of draw back towards the spine without losing any length in the spine. So you're kind of squeezing in. And then inhale, lift the heart. Expand the ribs. Stretch the belly. Maybe you feel like you don't have enough for the belly, as much as you can. Good. Exhale, the belly relaxes. The ribs hug you and the heart melts back. So it's this expansion and contraction. Let's do it one more time. Inhale, lift the heart. Open the ribs and stretch the belly. And then like you just put on like this magic yogic Spanx or something. The belly pulls in to take the breath out. The ribs hug you and the heart comes down. Good. And then just let the breath flow at a natural pace again. Maybe let out a sigh just to let that go. Good. You guys feel okay? All right. So that's just kind of a tool. Keep it in your toolbox when you need a moment. Find that 3-part breath. Let it bring you back to center. Right? We can bring ourselves back to center just with the breath. And I think because it's always with us, it may be so obvious it's one of those things we don't even think to do. But just taking 1 or 2 or 3 breaths. Any questions about the breath? It's always there. It's always there for you. So mindful intentions. I work a lot with intentions in the yoga class versus goals, right? Because intentions are what we can control, and intention is about how you do something versus exactly what you do. And in my book, I talk a lot about, I used to set New Year's resolutions, and they were very specific, and at 3 months, my husband and I would talk about them, at 6 months, and they were all about the things that we weren't doing but should do, right? So start out the year feeling bad, I'm not doing all these things, I really have to do them. And some of them were out of our control. You might say, and those of you who are looking for, might say, I'm going to go into a meeting and get this budget approved for $1 million. And the company had a budget cut, and you can't get the budget approved for $1 million. You can only get $50,000 approved, and you feel like you failed. But if your intention is to go in and be as prepared as you can be, and as cooperative as you can be, as collaborative and as visionary, you can control all of those things. So you can do everything right? And still not get the result that you want immediately, but you haven't failed. So Intentions change the focus of exactly what happens to how and why we do things. And I'm going to give you some examples of those. In a yogic text, the Bhagavad Gita, that a lot of yoga philosophy comes from, there's a saying that says, to action alone you're entitled, never to the fruits of your action. And that can sound kind of depressing at first, but to me it's very motivating because I have complete control over how I behave and pretty much nothing else. Pretty much nothing else. So if I go forward with my best effort time and time again, chances are that at some point things will line up, right? And we just keep doing that. We accomplish more with less stress. So let me just read to you what a few intentions might be, right? And think about, as you go into the challenges in your life, which of these might serve you, right? So you set your intention, put your best efforts forth. Do you want to be, would it help you, as a good intention for you, and this is one of mine, is to be patient, right? Maybe you have some conflict you've got to resolve. You can go in and say, I'm going to resolve this conflict, and this person's going to do what I want them to do, but you don't know that. But you can go in and say, I'm going to have a patient approach, and that could change everything. It could be mindful. Maybe you want to go in with just more awareness. Maybe your intention is to be balanced, or to be a leader, or to be reliable, right? Maybe your intention is to be courageous, and I will share with you that at the beginning of 2018, my intention was to be courageous, and I've had this book in me for years that's all the content of the presentations I do, and I just never quite felt right doing it. But because I had this intention to be courageous, when it was time to get to work, I had to do it. So this is the result of my intention, right? I didn't say I'm going to write a book. I didn't say the book is going to be this way or that way. I said I'm going to be courageous. So just something to think about. Other intentions: responsive, responsible, compassionate, memorable. Maybe you want to just be a rock star. That's your intention. Open-minded, innovative, decisive, healthy, efficient, team-oriented, grateful, fair, caring, powerful, strong, free, peaceful, loving, inspiring, and on and on and on. So kind of choosing how you will be and then going about doing what you'll do. And instead of just having a to-do list, I still have a to-do list. But they line up, my to-dos line up under my intention, and I feel a little bit more in harmony with what I want to do, instead of just doing things. Any questions about that? Yes?
Again, I don't want this to sidetrack you or anything, but so you have this, you have this, I'm going to write a book, but you said I'm going to be more courageous. Okay. My goal would be to be less anxious, but if I use that word, it makes me more anxious. So, and I get the idea of putting things out in the world and happening, but put it in January and have something happen in September. It's kind of weird. And so I want to be less anxious. So what would I?
Well, one thing about intentions that it's important to mention is that they're really most helpful when they're affirming. So if you're going to be less something, what would be the affirming way to say that? I'm going to be peaceful. I'm going to be at peace, or peace flows through me, right? Instead of saying I'm less anxious, what's the positive way to say that? I'm calm or I'm peaceful. Confident. So opposites are interesting because it's going to be whatever it is for you. Like for me, I'm like, okay, not anxious, calm, but confident. So then that's your intention. And maybe you can say it in different ways. You can say, I am confident. You can say, confidence flows through me, or something that is helpful to you. And affirm it to yourself, and then take actions that help you build confidence. So you may say, you know what, when do I feel pretty confident doing these things? Do more of those things. So start to fortify under your intention. That's what I say about that. Does that make sense? Anybody have any other questions? All right. So another area of the book is about being mindful in the morning and evening, setting up rituals that help to set your day. So this is just about awareness of how we move in and out of the day, because where your attention goes, prana flows. Does anybody know what prana is? Those two people who did yoga once? No. Prana is life force. So, and and whatever you pay attention to grows anyways for you, right? It's where you put your attention that things get bigger. So if you put your attention on a challenging relationship that you have, just focus on it all the time, chances are it's going to get a little more challenging unless you change the way you think about it, right? But where your attention goes, prana flows. So if you're, let's say you live all up in your head and you're worried about the past and you don't pay any attention to your physical body, you may end up getting sick or getting hurt. But if you pay attention to how you feel in your body, chances are you're going to take care of it. So where the attention goes, prana flows. So think about it. I just want to invite you right now. Think about what's the first thing you do each day. You don't have to say it. And what's the last thing you do each day? And are these actions setting the stage for a fully present day and a restful night? Because a lot of people, the first thing that they do, if it's even on here, is they reach for their phone, right? And the last thing that they do is reach for their phone, right? For most people, and research is showing that's not exactly the best thing to kind of set up your day and allow yourself to rest. So let's talk about in the morning. In the morning, before you reach for the phone, what would it be like if you just checked in with yourself? If you opened your eyes and you said, hey, self, whatever your name is, whatever you want to talk to, however you talk to yourself, how you doing this morning? And you feel into that, right? So you say, wow, I have some energy. I'm kind of tired. I'm thinking about this. Just to see where you are before you go out into the world and let other people's agendas and ideas get into your way, right? Then you might set your attention and say, hey, self, how am I going to go into the day? How am I going to go into the day? Don't have to think about it. Maybe something just pops in your head, or maybe you say, I don't really know yet. I'm kind of foggy. You kind of sit with it. But at least you've asked the question. Also really helpful for being mindful is to move in some way and connect to nature. So even if it's just looking out the window, maybe you're walking your dog, whatever it is, to get in harmony with nature. Because of all of the, because of all that we can do with artificial lighting and screens and things, we're not necessarily in tune with the rhythm and the flow of the day, right? Sometimes we don't really even get outside very much. So looking at nature, connecting with nature, will at least put you in with the flow of kind of the universe. So it's kind of helpful to feel a little more connected. Take care of hygiene. So of course we all brush our teeth and take a shower, but maybe there's some other ritual that that you find interesting. I don't know. I neti pot every morning. You guys know what neti pots are? And I don't have those. I'm not going to say it. I don't have Austin allergies 11 years after being here, but now probably tomorrow I'll wake up with a stuffy nose just because I said that. But that, to me, that's an important ritual. I also drink a cup of hot water. It's an Ayurvedic technique to just help start your digestion. And and then I do meditate in the morning. And I just sit. Sometimes it's, depending on what's going on, sometimes it's 10 minutes and sometimes it's 30 minutes. But just to spend a little bit of time with yourself. And then if you have a commute, to kind of commute with mindfulness too. So if you commute and you're listening to something that makes you mad, which I sometimes do, you listen to the radio and it's the news and it makes you mad, maybe you change what you commute to. But thinking about how you set your day, does that make sense? Does anybody have anything great that they do in the morning that they want to share that's helpful for people to hear?
So you have to run at least a mile with my dog. If not, my day is horror. It just starts going downhill because it relaxes me, and it actually relaxes and invigorates me at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have your kind of your key to what it sets your day. Yeah. Anybody else?
I used to do yoga in the morning, and that was great. But now I read that when looking for a job, the best time to apply is between 7 and 10 in the morning. So that's what I do now.
Okay.
I miss my yoga in the morning.
Yeah. Okay.
In the evening, after a walk, if I'm not tired, or sometimes I miss it altogether.
Would it be out of the realm to wake up a half hour earlier?
I'm not a morning person.
You're not a morning person. Okay. Yeah, and you have to kind of know that too. I'm an extreme morning person, but I go to bed very, very early. But you have to know that. You have to kind of go with what works. So it may be for you that just even checking in with yourself for 5 minutes is what you do, knowing that you're going to set in. Yeah.
What did you say you do?
Neti pot. So a neti pot. So yeah, but then not everybody knows what a neti pot is. It's kind of a weird thing, and you may have seen them. It's a little ceramic vessel that looks like, like a genie's lamp. Like a genie's going to come out of it, but it's not. And you fill it with salt and water or some saline solution, and it's a nasal rinse. And you pour it in through one nostril, comes out the other. There's thousands of videos about neti pot, N-E-T-I, pot. There's thousands of videos about a lot of the weird things. I have some other weird morning rituals. There's videos about all this stuff. There's people neti potting that shows you. I've been doing it for probably about 10 years when I brush my teeth. I do it every morning. And it just clears out your nasal passage so that if you are, I don't know that it can cure everyone's Austin allergies. I know that there's a lot more to that than that. But if you are catching a cold or you have some debris or something, it cleans it out. So at least it gives you that chance, a fighting chance to be cleared. Yeah. Anybody else have a cool morning ritual?
I have a quiet time where I get alone with God, read scripture and pray, and so I spend about 20, 30 minutes. Kind of a low key and being still, being alone.
Yeah, beautiful. And just think about the difference between doing that or running and picking up the newspaper and reading, about something really crazy, right? Or answering someone's emergency email, that they sent you in the middle of the night. So getting set with yourself before you start to reach out. So all of this mindfulness is getting centered with yourself before you go out and do something else. Thank you for sharing that stuff. Yeah. And then in the evening too, right? So disconnecting from the workday. And when you're looking for a job, I know that's challenging because you might not feel like you can stop until you get a job. But allowing yourself some time. So saying, you know what, I've done all I can today. Now I'm going to disconnect. Debriefing your day with yourself or someone else, right? So let's say you live alone, you don't really have someone to debrief your day with on a certain day. Write in your journal or talk to somebody. But let some of that stuff process and use your evenings to renew your energy. So if you're using your evenings are getting you more stressed out, you may need to reevaluate that, When my kids were in school, I insisted on family dinners. I had read that that was very important. And I had my son, who is now a responsible adult living his life, but at the time he was very challenging, and family dinners were excruciating for me. I hated them because they were very, not lots of negative energy, but I insisted we must have these family dinners. I had to kind of let go of that idea and change the way we did it because it wasn't really serving me. So it was, I come home from work and make dinner and then sit down to, teenage years, right? If you've had teenagers, they're not that great. Still kind of recovering, but you have to kind of look at what you're saying. I was like, this is not renewing me. So we would have a quick dinner, and I would go for a walk. And that changed things. So you have to kind of see what's working for you, and then mindfully nourish yourself. I also, for many years, was surprised every day by dinner. I come home from work and be like, dinner! You have to make dinner. But to plan for that, it happens every single night. Surprise, every night. But to plan for that so that at the time you can mindfully nourish yourself. It may be spending some time on a Sunday afternoon and, preparing some staples and being ready so that you are mindfully nourishing yourself. So you're bringing in, there is a lot written in the book about mindful nutrition. We won't talk a lot about it today. But to nourish yourself for the next day. And then turn off screens, not like as you're falling asleep with your phone under your pillow or anything, but before you do that, so that you have some time to get centered and grounded. So the screens are very, they get you more up in your head and get you a little bit more spacey, right? Versus really getting into your body. And then a gratitude practice. Anybody here have a good gratitude practice or hear about that? Just really, it's basically counting your blessings. And going through, you might do it in your head, you might write it down, but at the end of the day, review what you're grateful for. It's a very calming and centering type of practice. Even if it's something ridiculous, it doesn't have to be a big deal. Any questions about that? I'm going to get us moving a little bit because that's what I do. All right, so then mindful movement. Obviously, you can tell I'm a yoga teacher, very interested in physical wellness. But when we do this kind of movement, when we can connect to our bodies, we can connect to the wisdom of the body, because here the felt sense is where more truth resides than in here. I always tell my students, don't believe everything you think, right? We can create, right? Don't believe everything you think. we hold on to these thoughts. There may be some truth in them, but they may not be so true, but we've convinced ourselves they are. But the body won't lie to you. It's this source of information that if you are spending time feeling into the body, you can connect more fully to yourself. And you can move to connect the breath and the mind and the body and the heart. So all aspects of you coming together. So you guys open to a little bit of movement? Nothing crazy? Do you feel good? Okay. Go ahead and stand up. Stand up. And just plant your feet on the floor, right, firmly. So kind of feeling your stance on your own 2 feet and feel the solidity of the earth underneath you. So kind of press into the floor. And then from there, feel light as you lift up. Good. Arms by your sides. And just drop your right ear to your right shoulder. So as we do this, I'm going to keep reminding you to breathe, but even if I forget to remind you, keep breathing. Good. Yeah. Inhale and exhale. I know there's like this collective. Good. Inhale and exhale. Good. And then put your hands on your shoulders if you can. If you can't do that, just keep your arms by your sides. And then bring your chin down towards your throat. So we have carry so much tension in the upper body. We sometimes have to just let that go. Let out a few breaths here. All right. You can keep your eyes open or you can close them. Good. And then drop your left ear to your left shoulder. And then bring the chin back down towards the throat. And lift your heart. So I know there's a little bit of breath holding. So let's just let out a sigh on your next exhalation. And then this time when you exhale, flutter your lips, go. Good, I know. And then this time, stick out your tongue and roar. Good, and you guys are so good at that, we're going to do advanced roaring. This time, stick out your tongue, roar, and wag your tongue side to side. Good, and then just be still and notice if some energy is moving. Sometimes we get, we're like sitting and we're working, we got to get these last resumes out, and you're like this, and you haven't moved or connected or breathed, and you're just a little bit stuck. So moving energy through the throat is very helpful. Now just roll your shoulders, good. And sometimes carry a lot of tension here, right? Just roll your shoulders, good. And then let your elbows start to circle. We end up, because we are so rounded over screens or steering wheels, we end up having a lot of weakness in the back body, and that causes all kinds of havoc on the back. So just circling the elbows, and then reach your arms up, like a big, I always say like you're auditioning for those old Folgers ads, yeah, good. Reach up. And then lift your arms up and wiggle your fingers. Good. And shake your hands out like you're shaking water off your hands. Keep breathing. Maybe, in fact, now you can kind of sigh out. And then shake your wrists and shake your elbows. Shake your shoulders. Other things might shake. Don't worry about it. Just keep going. We're human bodies. It's okay. And then inhale. Reach the arms up. And let your arms float down. And just notice energy is kind of working. And then go ahead and sit down in your chairs. I'm going to show you just a little bit of movement you can do if you are working and you've been sitting for a long time and you want to move. I think I can take this. Yeah. Okay. So just having a seat. I hope you can still see me. So let's say you've been sitting for a long time and you just need to move. Just come forward in your chair, hands to your thighs. Inhale here. And on your exhale, round the back, chin comes down. Stretch the space between the shoulders. Good. Inhale, lift the heart. Exhale, round. Good. So remember, inhale, we're filling the body with the breath. And on the exhale, we're squeezing the belly a little bit towards the spine. Inhale, lift up. Exhale, round. One more time like that. Inhale, lift up. And exhale. And then just come right to the center. Just notice. So movement, keeping the spine moving, really important for back health. And I know most people, like 80% of Americans have some back issues. From here, if you can do a little twist with the chair, just bring your hands over to the right. Maybe one hand comes to the back of the chair. Just not kind of cranking the body around, but just a gentle twist. Let your shoulders stay down. Look over your right shoulder. And when you inhale, get taller. And when you exhale, maybe you twist just a little more. It's a pretty rigid area of the body, this rib cage, but we want a little bit of range of motion here. Good. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, twist. One more time. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, come back to the center. Twists can be really re-energizing too. You just need to get a little bit, kind of stir things up. That's what they do. So just you'll feel a difference on one side of the body and the other, and then come to the other side. And this side might feel different. Okay. Inhale and lengthen the spine. Exhale, turn and look over the shoulder. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, lift. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale. Come back to the center. From here, just take your feet away from you a little bit. If you can, cross your left ankle over your right thigh. If you can't, you'll cross your left ankle over your right shin. Okay? So you start to get a little stretch in the hip, especially when you get a little stiff. Lift up, and maybe you just come forward a little bit until you feel some sensation. So the mindfulness of this is saying, wow, okay, there's something going on here, right? It may even be uncomfortable. But you can stay with the discomfort. This is what it feels like to start to create more space in the body. So always when change is happening, it's uncomfortable. Being mindful allows you to stay with that discomfort, understand that it's not forever, and be with it so it can do its thing, so you can start to process it and move through it. I always say yoga practice allows you to, it's like conflict resolution, it allows you to be in these difficult positions without running away screaming, which is helpful off the mat as well as on the mat. Yeah. So, and then because when we're uncomfortable, we typically like to distract ourselves. That's why we reach for the phone if we're nervous or bored, or we just distract ourselves. And really, it's staying with it, being mindful with what is that helps us to process and move through things. So one side might be a little different than the other here too, right? Give this just one more breath. And then bring this in. And just let out another sigh. So just notice how you feel and what's going on energy-wise. Right? Does anybody feel worse? I mean, my job is so easy as a yoga teacher. People don't usually feel worse. So, and I'm just holding space for you to start to lose some energy. All right. Any questions about that? Wrap up any questions. I know you guys have more to do here. So I just want to end with, mindful practices are not just for the yoga and meditation studio. You can bring mindful practices into your life and find that you'll be more present, feel better and more at ease. I just encourage you to give it a try and see what happens.